will control the vertical.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthologic with your host Mark. Today we're covering an episode of The Night Gallery. This is from season 3, episode 9, and it is a single story and it's called She'll Be Company for You. This interestingly aired on the 24th of December 1972, so a Christmas Eve special. And it was the 89th episode of The Night Gallery overall. This is a mess of an episode, possibly the worst episode of the entire run, actually. It's that bad. It suffers from a number of problems. Leonard Nimoy's in it, and actually Leonard Nimoy is pretty good. And in fact, the entire cast is fine. The acting is not the problem. What is the execution of the story. And I've read a bit about some of what was going on behind the scenes to find out how did this happen. Right, so the story is a man kind of buries his invalid wife, a burial. She has died, and he feels, you get the sense he's got more relief than grief, right? Because he's been looking after her. And a friend of hers is also kind of picks up on this and said she'll send over her cat for company, basically. The story is based on a short story by a writer called Andrea Newman, a quite good English writer. And I think it kind of went wrong because they put it in the hands of basically a new director, Jerry Finneman, who is quite a good cinematographer. He worked on a classic Star Trek, in fact, and that's how he knew Nimoy and got Nimoy involved, I believe. However, this was his first directorial effort, and the script was... Reading between the lines of how the scriptwriter wanted things done, what he was intending, is deliberately vague and sort of woolly, It kind of suggests rather than just says, do this, do that, or as directions, as it were. I guess scripts don't, but even so. So what was supposed to be fairly ethereal and sort of mysterious just comes off as goofy and weird, almost like bad exploitation movie, drug overdose scene, hallucinatory scenes, somewhat. Essentially, Nimoy's terrorized by a cat, but he keeps in a bigger and bigger cat. But we literally see, a leopard and a tiger and things like that. Apparently, the scriptwriter wanted all this hinted at. He had cat people on his mind, so he wanted to say, we never show, or you see a vague hint, and when you look carefully, there's nothing there. That's what I wanted. But what was coming out was a really quite literal adaptation. And it just doesn't work. Now, in the hands of sort of a more experienced director for Night Gallery, say Jenna Schwartz's hands, who actually does direct the next episode, so he was around, this may have actually worked, but it doesn't. And the other thing that doesn't work at all is the music is quite a poor fit, and it seems goofy. And it just actually feels a little overstretched for the runtime, even though it's only 20 odd minutes. It's kind of cool to see Nimoy doing stuff, but he's really acting in what is quite an appalling vacuum. I looked into some of the issues that Finneman had, apart from it being new to him. And he had a couple of issues. One was Lorraine Gary, one of their main actresses in this, who did a very good job. has to be said. Like I said, all the acting was fine. I thought she was excellent, actually. Was actually the wife of a Universal executive, so he felt on tenterhooks dealing with her. That doesn't help, right? There was a scene that got cut in the end, and that might explain why this feels somewhat padded, because there was another scene that was never used, which involved like an old-time comedian called, I think, Jackie Oakey. Hold on, I'll look that up. But it turned out when they come to film the scene, he was profoundly deaf or could barely hear anything, so was kind of asking people to shout so he could hear. And it just, Jack Oakey was the thing. So they did the scene, but it wasn't part of the edit in the end. It's overall, the script writer just felt like he wasn't in tune with the Night Gallery even. Or maybe he was and just wasn't in tune with what the director could do. And there's some comments. I'm looking in the Rod Serling's Night Gallery, an After Hours tour by Scott Skelton and Jim Benson. And there's some stuff in there talking about how this was kind of directed more as a cinematographer rather than a director. It just didn't have the pace that experienced director would bring to this. Leonard Nimoy was sympathetic. He says Jerry had a tough script. It was kind of vague. So there were certain sort of ethereal, nebulous kind of descriptions. And in the end, it turned out to be Leonard Nimoy spinning in a chair while weird cat projections happened around him, like he was losing his mind. That's weird. I didn't enjoy this one. I like seeing Nimoy. It's always interesting to see early-ish Nimoy, post Star Trek, but not too far into the 70s Nimoy and stuff. I kind of like that. I mean, Mission Impossible is probably his biggest jam in it, I suppose, but that's more like 60s. But this was a bit of a disaster. And as I say, possibly the worst one we've seen. So, not a big recommend. For the completists, this one. Interesting, it aired on the December the 24th, Christmas Eve. A traditional time for horror stories, but it was just a very, very unfortunate one. This is one of those ones where people say, oh yeah, the last season was terrible. It's down to things like this, right? That's what's going on there. Okay, I am going to wind up there. I don't think there's really much more to say about this particular episode. I'm going to wind up there. Before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to